So just quick slide before I get to the practical elements. So agenda for today. Sorry, someone is trying to get in. John. Okay. Hi, John. Welcome. Agenda for today. We'll put on our thinking hat in the ideation phase. So two things here. First thing is to help you pick an idea. So this is going to be your project. So we're going to use everything that we learn. You're going to be applying it to this idea. So it has to be a fresh idea. It doesn't exist anywhere. And you're going to put the product thinking and all of the frameworks, all of the ideas that you learn into that project to help you uncover. So think of yourself as a company, and that company has an idea that it wants to solve. So it's a problem that you identified and you want to solve it. This is a process, this is a process that some companies go through to evolve an idea, or companies that already have a solution, they think on how to enhance. So we're going to go via the greenfield, route, because that will help you apply more, more theories and more ideas. So you learn far more than picking an idea that already exists. So a fresh idea, you will learn literally all there is to learn on product management. And you go through some of the analysis that as a PM you have to go through. So you look at things like, customer pain points, market trends, the competitive landscape, and customer feedback. So all of these things would be evolved. But for today, this is more futuristic. And we'll look at some requirement gathering, prioritization frameworks, something called RICE, and there's something called Moscow. These two are the most commonly used in the industry. RICE is much more sophisticated. Moscow is very basic. It's just saying must have, should, could, and won't. And then we would user experience, user design, development engineering, and quality assurance. These things we'll look at. I don't think we'll have time for them today, but maybe next week, depending on how far we get on today. And my idea is something called flight scanner. So I have an idea. This is what I'll be using for our classes moving forward. Flight scanner. Flight scanner it's an idea. Whenever you go to, I'm Nigerian. Whenever I go to Nigeria to book a flight, it's something I have to go directly to the provider. So for example, Air Peace, Ibome, I have to go directly to them. Whereas in the West, they've figured out how to get people cheaper prices. And so you can see my idea it's not exactly it's not exactly original, but it's a copy. So I give you permission. You are allowed to do copy. It just doesn't have to exist in where you want to launch the idea. And this is exactly my idea. Skyscanner. Everyone, I would assume, has used Skyscanner before. Skyscanner, it's where you come and you search for deals, and then you proceed to get, several airlines. Let's say I want to go to Madrid, and I'm here now. I can get several. This is a price comparison site, essentially. It compares deals and gives me the deals. If I go directly to, for example, let's say British Airways, the tickets might be more expensive. And so this is what consumers in Nigeria face. They pay high prices, whereas if you have an aggregator like a Skyscanner in the country, then potentially, my thesis says you might be getting some cheaper prices for everyone. And to bring that to life, the business idea is flight scanner. So you search for flights across the country. If you were traveling from Lagos to Cross River or Lagos to Abuja, for example, then we might be able to find you 3 providers, and you might be more interested in, for example, the cheapest. You might be price sensitive, and so you might go for the cheaper offering. If you're price sensitive, that will be your thinking. And maybe you're looking for quality, then we'll give you all those, we'll search and we'll bring, and then you can do the rest. And how do you do the rest? You can filter. When you filter, you can filter by maybe you want to fly from a certain airport. So these are things that we can provide, and that would add ultimately more value to consumers. So users will be able to have choice. You just don't go to one, and then they decide we'll charge you 100K for a flight, and you just go ahead and pay. And now when you introduce the elements of you're being compared with other airlines, that might spark some competition, in which case might benefit the consumer. So these are all the ideas that are coming to mind with this idea. And you
Hi,
two will.
Darlington.
Hi.
Please, are you sharing your screen already?
I apologize. I wasn't.
Okay. All right. And not sure if it's from my end or yours. The
Mm,
volume is quite low.
really?
Yeah.
Uh,
I can hear him clearly. It should be from your end.
okay.
Yeah, the volume is fine over here.
Okay. So could you check your system again? Let me know how it is. Okay. Well, I hope it's resolved. So sorry guys, I wasn't sharing my screen. Uh, so the idea is flight scanner. So essentially covering the regions of not just Nigeria but Africa entirely. Imagine there was a flight aggregator, a comparison site that all it does was just compare flights. If you want to fly to South Africa, you want to fly to Ghana, you want to fly to the Gambia, it just gives you the best airlines to fly with. And so it's a copycat of Skyscanner. We have Skyscanner, and here it's not something, this is business. These things happen. You have another one called Cheap Flights. Does the same thing. It's just an aggregator. Does the same thing as Skyscanner. So you can see two products can exist in the market. And then you have customers have choice. They can choose to come to Cheap Flights or they can go to Skyscanner. So these are some of the ways that some of the best ideas are challenged and they grow. So in my case, for the purpose of the class, I'm thinking of something called Flight Scanner, covering the regions of Africa. That's it. And okay, so that's my idea, and I want everyone to also please be thinking of an idea in your head, what you might want to do. So we're going to use that idea, and you will use that idea and put all of the product thinking that you gain from henceforth into that idea. And then we'll be having a review of how it's going. And so each artifact that you have to produce, so each documentation that you have to produce for the class, and we'll also give a chance at some point for everyone to present and share what is the idea, what is the driver behind it, what's the problem that you're solving, and why is now the right time for that idea to come to life, and what competitors are out there that are currently doing it. Very few ideas are brand new, very few. Some it's just a better version of an idea done really well and delivered by the people. So I'm not expecting some people to come up with really really brand new, but just to think about the idea. It could be that the idea exists in the West, it doesn't exist where you are. So just thinking of location as well, that's key. Okay, let's move on now to the next phase. So I thought of, like our classes moving forward because it's going to be much more hands-on, and these are some of the things. I don't know how many of you have heard of something called the Pareto principle. It says 20% of what you do gives you 80% of the output. I love this principle because it's so true when it comes to product management. In product management, 20% of the activities you do will give you 80% of your effectiveness. So how effective you are, you will need to be really good. There's so many things you can do. If you do every single thing, then you won't be really effective. So you have to prioritize to say these are the 20% that I'm going to be amazing at. And then these 20% will give me 80% of my effectiveness in any role I get into. So if you know, for example, how to write user stories, that's part of that 20%. And then we'll get into acceptance criteria. That's part of that 20%, understanding business requirements, creating product requirements. How do you create product documentations? You will have to create one for your chosen idea. So again, gives you a chance to learn how to create them. And then how do you work with stakeholders? Moving forward, the class, everyone is going to have to learn how to, in terms of collaboration, in terms of being challenged on your idea. When you come to present to the class, we'll listen and we'll critically evaluate and ask you questions on your idea. And you will have to try and convince us to buy into why the idea might be successful. And then as part of your idea evaluation, you're going to have to conduct some, quantitative interviews and qualitative interviews as well. So quantitative is like surveys, and then qualitative is more like, interviews, focus groups. And I expect you use your environment. So your friends and peers, people around you, to say, look, I'm taking this course, and as part of the exercise, I have to create and conduct this survey. In terms of the quantitative, I will help you with that. But qualitative, I can also help you with the framing of questions. But then you will have to go sit people down and, see how that's done. And again, I'll create an example, perhaps of me interviewing someone, and then you gauge and see how, try to take some principles from that and then apply it to your interview. But the outcome of that is what you gain is, full understanding of customer pain points. So you come up with this idea and you think it's going to solve a problem. And then you interview people and you do a survey and you find out that, yes, actually, people are experiencing that issue. Now, in product management, that's known as, identifying pain points. You've identified that this actually is a fact. And it's not just something, it's not a passionate, product for you. It's not a passion project for you. It's something that you can now confirm with data that it exists. And so if you were seeking investment from investors, these are some of the evidence you will need to quote back to them and share with them to convince them that, you're actually solving a real problem. And then you also, another part of that 20% is your ability to work within the engineering team, designers, your fellow product people. So in this case, it would be your classmates, your business analysts, your product owners. So being able to just work with people, that's a skill. In a business environment, how do you put yourself forward in a positive light? First impressions, they count. These things, once you're one step ahead, you keep it that way. And then your ability to work with business stakeholders, that's something that's critical. Being able to persuade marketers, finance people, the legal teams. You come up with an idea and maybe a legal legislation says it's not possible. Being able to convince your legal team within the company to support you in finding ways around how you can overcome that. It's all skills. And we'll also learn some hard skills around being able to create flowcharts. This is critical. We'll also learn how to create some mock-up designs. This gives us appreciation for people that so this will give us appreciation for working with your UI, user interface designers or user experience designers. Because if we see how challenging it can be, then we tend to be a little bit more patient, because we've dabbled it, we've put our foot in it, so we see that it's not easy. So when they come up with that creative designs and we say, wow, that's amazing, then we can focus on our bit, which is just to ask questions, to probe, to see that they've gone through the full design process on their end, and then we can come out of it a lot stronger. And so that's part of that 20%. And then this is more us just, being able to interview well really helps you with conducting interviews. So we'll give you some tips on how when you start interviewing for product roles, how you can really put yourself forward. And everything covered here, if you can, confidently master these skills, in any job you go to, it will be felt. Someone will see it that, wow, this person is really good, and I would love to, give him a chance. And that's all we want. That someone gives you a chance, you go in and you perform, and then the rest is history. So to do so, these are the tools that we need, and I will add everyone henceforth to Slack. This will be our communication tool, again, to get you familiarized with, to familiarize yourself with Slack. It's a tool that it's used in, tech companies. I know you have people use Teams. Teams is more very businessy. If you're joining a product team, Slack will be something that you use. And Jira is where, it's a communication, is where your development team, this is where requirements are kept. And Figma is where design, so your user interfaces, user experiences, this is where they're designed. That's owned by the designers. And Confluence is where documentation. So I mentioned earlier, so everyone is going to create a proposal, and that proposal will be stored in Confluence. So you begin to gain, confidence. I'll create a link and share with everyone, and each individual will have their own workspace that they will be creating documentation for their product idea. And that gives you, again, hands-on experience on how to work with Confluence. So when you join the company and they give you access to Confluence, you're like, oh yeah, I've already used this. I'm really familiar with it. You join a company and they use Figma. You said, yes, I've used it, I've seen it. And the same thing with Jira and Slack. So with that being said, I'll show you what these tools look like. This is Slack. I'm going to add everyone to it. And this will be where we have our conversations moving forward. So move away from WhatsApp. We use it only if necessary, but we'll try to get you really ingrained in this, so you have that full experience of how to use Slack. You have, conversations in Slack, or maybe you chat directly with, people, and you're in group projects, and that gives you, full-on experience on how to use it. And then with Jira, this is where engineering teams, this is where everyone in the company comes if they want to see how, teams are progressing with, development. So you come here and you see, go through this, and you see what the backlog looks like. In most cases, as a product owner, you would own the backlog. So we'll populate this with a bunch of requirements, and each person, will also have a backlog. And that being the case, you'll see how you're going to populate your backlog for your idea that you come up with. It's an entire process to get to the backlog. There are a range of things, activities that you have to do. So we'll go through all of that process, and in the end, you have the full spectrum of product management, skills gained from doing, not from, reading. And that's the difference. And the last one is Confluence. You'll have some of your documentations here, and in doing so, you're getting the full range of experience on how to use Confluence. So whenever you join a team, as part of their onboarding, what they usually do is they send you a whole range of documentations on products, on the product you're going to be helping, for example, and then you get to read on it. And in this case, you're creating one. So you're thinking, well, if someone joins this company that I'm forming, they will want to know this about the product. How did it come about? And that's a proposal. So we create it here, and all of those things will, solidify your understanding and skills of the product management processes. And then here is Figma. You see how, designers, I admire designers because, I tried early on in my career, I tried to, really dabble into it and create stuff. It's really to be that creative. I'm terrible with colors, so I couldn't do it. So whenever I see a well-designed, site or a well-designed product or app, I really admire it because I think back on how difficult it was for me, and I think, wow, that's amazing. That how you came up with just a combination of, the variations of things and the elements, all of that. Like, why did you put the search button here? These are the questions that come to my mind. And wow, how did you come up with that? And the blend. So it makes you just, gain admiration for what your designers do. And that only enhances the relationship. If you appreciate people, they'll want to help you more. Okay. And lastly, it's Miro. This board here, this is a collaboration tool. Miro became, a massive tool during COVID. Because prior to COVID, Miro's been around, but people didn't really understand the value. And as COVID came, lots of companies around the world finding ways to collaborate, drove the use of Miro. So you get to really, I didn't have it here. Look at that. So you get to really understand how powerful this is from a collaborative perspective. Okay, that being said, before I move on, any questions? Okay, no questions? Then fantastic. So we'll step back to flight scanner. So it would be create a new board. Is everyone on their, well, I hope everyone would be on their mobile, on their laptop. If not, then that's fine. You can enter your ideas. So I've just shared a link. If everyone can come on board, can click on that link and join Miro, that would be great. Perfect. One person is here. So the idea here is to have a more collaborative session on how we might, brainstorm. So the key is to brainstorm for flight scanner. And the question to brainstorm on is, okay, for those that don't have access to Miro, that's fine. You can equally contribute by just typing your responses on the chat and we'll copy those over. So So here, awesome. Okay, so spoken an idea of flight scanner. So flight scanner is the value proposition for flight scanner is a flight aggregator that searches for flights. You provide you provide your destination, where you're headed to, where you be flying from, and where you're heading to. You provide the date and the return date, if any. You provide all of this information, and it searches. So if you're flying from Ghana to let's say Africa Coast, for example, you provide those two details, and the date and so on, and it goes on to search for flights, providers, what partners will be flying to those destinations. And as a company, Flight Scanner would, of course, try to create deals with these companies in the same way that Skyscanner does. Skyscanner has deals with most of these airlines and say, sell us every year. We want to buy, let's say, 100,000 tickets for destinations between London and Madrid. They'll buy them because you're buying bulk, you get a discount. And then now, when customers come here, you can decide to, in many cases, it depends. In the summer, tickets are more expensive. So, in actual fact, they can, make more money in the summer. So they can afford to sell some tickets, on a cheaper rate during the winter months of January, February, and so on, because they're relying on the summer to gain, more revenue and like capture more value during those months. And so, Flat Scanner could also do the same thing. So, we can form a deal with these companies, and by doing so, we get some discounts on ticket prices. And in our case, so we understand the problem, we know it exists. These are all assumptions. We know it exists, and we want to now focus on. We're now in a product management brainstorming session, and we say what key features my users want to see on this website or app. So how you do this, if you come back to Google Meet just to see my screen, so I can show you how you add things to this. On the side, you'll see a sticky note, just that, and then you'll click on it, and you might have to zoom in, or I just have to enlarge it. So don't worry, don't have to zoom in. I've enlarged it, and you'll type your idea there. So what are some features you want to see? Of course, it will be things like search. As you can see, we only want to focus on flights, not hotels, not car hire, just flights, at least for the MVP. So we want to have things like, for example, the ability to search. So that's one. There's so many more things that we want to have. So add whatever comes to mind. When you're brainstorming, there's no such thing as a bad idea. So add anything that comes to mind, and that's part of the filtering. We'll discuss it in the end. So if you don't have access to Miro, just maybe type it in the chat, and we could then I'll add it over for you. Yes, John, you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I was trying to sign up for Miro, so he was asking me some questions. I don't know. Is that a normal? I was asking for a team or something. Is that a normal process?
I don't believe. Did you click on the link that I shared?
Yeah, I followed the link, or maybe I should try it again.
It shouldn't, because I made it accessible. I can see some visiting links here. That means it shouldn't. I don't know how everyone else got in. I don't believe they all. Did you guys sign in? People that
Let
are
me
in?
just let me just try it again.
Okay.
Excuse me, I signed up for it just now, and
Okay.
then I saw that I was able to um like do some editing as a
Right.
visiting um but the issue is it keeps like a visiting innovator, it kept signing me out of
Oh.
um Meet.
Okay.
Like I couldn't do the two together at the same time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, maybe because of the mobile I'm using.
All right. 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 Perhaps. Yeah.
Okay, so on my own part, I've been able to sign in by clicking on the link. I think the first time it was about signing up, so
Okay.
we've said that's done.
That's great. You're ahead already. It's because we all need to have a mirror account. So that's fantastic that you've already got one. Uh, think. Yes, go ahead, Sahid. You're on mute, Sahid. You have your hands raised.
Okay, please, I'm trying to sign in on the email now, so I can't get the link here. Oh no.
Sorry, you have what?
Yes, I'm on my system already now, so I need the link in order to sign in.
Ah, okay. Let me share the link again.
I've shared it again. I've just shared the link again.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So someone has put here. They want to be able to filter. So if everyone comes to me, let's see. Yeah. So on your left, you'll see something. If you want to come back to me to see my screen, I'll show you again how to add sticky notes, or you can just copy one of these and change the text to yours. Actually, let me add a few of them. So I've added blank ones, so you can use any of those to add your ideas. So this is giving you an example of how ideas come to form. So you think of features, you think of your, something you use daily, such as your WhatsApp, how that came about. It's through brainstorming sessions like this, where you have a bunch of product owners, product managers, engineers, business owners, and they just say what my users want to do in an app that allows them to communicate with others. They might want to message, they might want to call, they might want to make a group call, they might want to create groups. So this is such a forum that those decisions were made. So they brainstorm a whole range of ideas, and then you go into the next phase, which is to prioritize those ideas. Which ideas should you focus on first initially, and then you move on from there. So one thing, you don't have to put the ability, guys. You can just put something like search for flights. Just keep it simple. Search for flights. That's it. That's one. You could also say, I want to be able to, once I search, I want to be able to sort the results. So sort flight results. That's another thing. Sometimes you search, you have so many results. Maybe you want to be able to filter. So you put yourself in the shoes of a customer, and think, yes, I would love to filter the results, So that's another feature. These are all capabilities. So filter search results. I might, on as the product manager on Flight Scanner, I might want to allow customers. So I might want to allow customers to receive notifications based on their search history. So notify customers of changing prices based on search history. Sometimes I search, so many flights. So imagine all the flights I searched. Maybe I searched something 2 weeks ago and I'm no longer interested. And suddenly I get a notification that tells me that prices have gone down by 30%. That might change my mind. So that's a good feature to have. I liken this to the idea of WhatsApp, just saying, why do we need to just allow people to just make single calls? Some people may want to make group calls. So let's also have, the capability for making group calls. So as a PM, it's good to think in this way. You solve a problem for one thing, you also think, how might that problem be resolved if the dynamics change? If there are more than two people, now I don't want to have a conversation with one person and then wait and then have a conversation with another person. I may want to do it in the same moment. So the same ideas, you have to take them into consideration. And something else, I may want to notify you customers or users. Notify users of changes in prices based on seasons. So in the summer, I may want to let people know that flights to Mexico are a little bit more expensive. So whilst in the winter, I may want to notify them to book them in the winter. So as soon as November is here, I said, well, would you, because you searched for this last month or 2 months ago, would you want to book those tickets now? They're much more cheaper. And in our case, as I said, this is relevant to Africa. So if someone search a flight to Cape Town and they live in Ghana, so our flight scanner is going to notify them of whenever seasons, whenever we're in a season that you can potentially get cheaper tickets. We don't wait until the season comes because we try to encourage new business. And this means flights within Africa, flights only flying within. So if you're flying from Ghana to Spain, we don't really care. We want to encourage and drive business within the African ecosystem. So flying out, we don't really cover those. We only cover flying within. Okay, seeing as these are the ideas, fantastic. I like this, providing holiday ideas for customers. Yeah, that's a good one. So now we have all of these ideas. I like that. Filter flight class with price. Okay, if we all can, any more ideas? Do we have any by the chat? So we start rounding up now so we can. Okay. Yes, John, go ahead.
So at this stage of what we are doing with Miro now, is it not? Is our focus is not supposed to be like MVP, or is it just a general brainstorming session?
You're ahead. We're getting there. You're ahead of us. Yeah, we're getting there. So here is just we have to gather the ideas. Once we get the ideas, then we can say, right, every one of these card, every one of these item is very important, but in product management, everything cannot be important. there has to be a priority, and that's when we start thinking MVP. So we have to do, let's say, 20% of these things so we can get to market faster. If someone gets up tomorrow and thinks, wow, Skyscanner exists in the West, it doesn't exist in Africa, and then they get to market before us, then they will most likely capture a lot of the market. And if we come out next, it's going to be much more difficult. So as a PM, we have this in the back of our mind, and that's always driving speed to market. How can we be lean and get something that is not great, it's an inferior product, but it does the job. So it's an A to B. So yes, we're getting there. That's what we'll do next. Once, I believe, is there any more ideas? Anyone still has something? You can say it out loud if you don't want to type. Great. Then let's move on to the next phase. As John, alluded to, we need to think from an MVP perspective. How do we prioritize this? To say we must focus on a lean version of our product. No product goes to the market 100% of the features it needs. If it does that, then there will be no need to grow. So you need to release something, and then you advance the product itself. That being said, I've just forgotten a critical component of such an application, which is registration. We need to allow people to be able to create accounts, which is registration. That registration would empower a lot of these features, such as being able to save your searches. That's another one. Save my searches. Save my flight searches. Someone has their hands raised. Go ahead, Bogart.
Yeah, another one is we'll have to create a platform for them to give feedback.
So a way of collecting feedback. That's a good one. Collecting customer feedback that can allow us to enhance our platform. Yeah. Any other ones? Anything you don't understand about this process? Any questions? It doesn't have to be a contribution towards this. It could just be, here's just giving you an example of what you would have to do for your idea itself. We need to go through a brainstorming session, in which case you might have to brainstorm with it yourself and then come to us with the ideas. Go ahead, Logan.
Yeah, there should be like a contact us in case for people who are not able to like search for flights themselves, or there should be like a contact us that can lead to maybe a WhatsApp or Messenger or something that would. Yeah.
That's a good one. Nowadays, being reachable by customers only benefits your business. Yeah, especially the integration of WhatsApp. So if customers have an issue, we can help resolve immediately. Yeah. So these are all high level, business requirements, and each of these will need to refine them and dig deeper. You draw out far more requirements at that level. At a product management level, we care about the high level business requirements. These can also be known as use cases. And we'll go through that in a second, but just we'll learn by examples. Any more?
In that case, maybe we can consider chatbots as well.
So you're saying that could be exactly. So when you look at what I mean by expansion of these, if we expanded contact us, we can have something like being able to be reached by a chatbot, being able to be, to reach consumers via WhatsApp, being able to reach us via a, maybe a telephone call. These are all various ways of achieving contact us. So these are the high level. It's like having an umbrella, and then you have multiple ways of achieving, whatever that use case is, below it. Before we do some prioritization, I think it's good to break that down a bit. So I created this in product management, especially pertaining to Jira. There are various ways to create, when you think of issues. So can everyone see my screen? Okay.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, good. So we have something called issue type, and when you're thinking of issue type, it's just saying like how much detail do you want to provide. What we have just done here is at a brainstorming at a use case level. It's just saying what is a problem. These cards signify problems. I have a problem, I'm looking for a flight. Okay, I want to be able to search. That's just at a high level. When we expand into this, then we start looking at like, okay, where are you flying from? These are the individual details we need from you to enable you to fly. So we think your current destination or the destination you'll be flying from, where are you flying to, what is the from date, and what is the to date that you'll be returning. Is it a single flight, or is it a return flight? So these are all of these questions, or all of these information will be obtained from search for flights. Yeah. And so each of these cards, that being said, it's more what is known as an epic level. And if we look in Jira, we'll see that can be, you can see here, epic. So Jira has, 4 different ways of creating tickets. But what you use more often, bug is used by, your QAs, your quality analysts. And so from a product management perspective, you're more likely to create epics and stories. And we'll get to all of this. So you have a full hands-on experience on how to do any of this. So if you join a company tomorrow and they say, please could you create one epic for us? You won't say, how do I do it? You will know exactly how to do it. And you click on epic, and it's going to ask for an epic name. It's going to ask for like a brief summary, and that's it. It's done. And so the relationship works in this way, that an epic is like a parent. It can have multiple children. And then, and the children of that, they're known as user stories. So I think I put it here. Yeah. So within an epic, you have one epic, for example, and then that epic would have tons of user stories within it, for as many as needed to fulfill that epic. And then you would then have a user story, which can have all of the different things that have to be done to fulfill that user story. And then that could be something like create a UI design, a user interface design, and this will be assigned to a designer. And so as a PM, my role might be just to create a user story. As a user, I want to be able to, there's a framework for this. We'll get into that. So my role as a PM, just to create the user story within the epic, and that's it. And I have a business analyst that works for me. That business analyst will create what's known as acceptance criteria. So that's a task. They own that. A designer owns this. The engineers own the business logic. That's the implementation of their business, of the requirements. So all of this all sit within the user story. How does that look like? So I'll show you now from an example perspective. We'll create an epic. So our first epic, let's call it registration. Everyone, we may run a business process where we say, in order for you to search on Flight Scanner, you have to create an account. In the same way, in order for you to send an email, you have to first sign in. But we don't want that sort of business logic. I'm just using that as an example, because if you go on Skyscanner, I don't need to sign in order to make a search. But I can still sign in here. As you can see, this allows you to capture more users. More people will use your product. Some people never want to create an account, so we don't want to bring such limitations. Anyway, back to Jira. So we create an epic called registration, and then we say enable users to create an account on Flights Scanner, and this would be all the information we need. So you will have as many epics as you need. There is no limitations on how many you should have, and this is something that comes, you develop a sense of it with more experience. But for the core ones, you have something like registration, and as we correctly called it out here, we said it's something that has to be solved, registration. So we can say that's been created in Jira, so we can mark it green. Just to illustrate the example of creating tickets in Jira. So that's done, and you add the issue type you selected here if you want to create an epic, which is what we're trying to do. The project is Flight Scanner, because it could be multiple projects in Jira. So you select the right project if you need to select, and then the epic name, which is registration, and then a brief summary. So if anyone within the business wants to find out, they can read and they understand, like, okay, that makes sense. And then in here in description, if you need to provide more details, you can add more details around here. And then this is who is reporting it. I am the reporter, so everyone knows I am, working on this feature. And then that's it. If I want to add a label is just, it could be saying this is part of the MVP, for example. Yeah, we'll get to that once we prioritize, but these are more advanced features. Initially, you just need to master how to add an issue type and the epic name and the summary, and then you click on create. That's all you need to master for now, and then you can view it. And then I mentioned that user stories live underneath epics, maybe later. So now I can add child issues. Child issues are user stories. So I come in, I select, and I change to user story. And then here I add, maybe registration, registration form. That's user story number 1. Another one could be profile. I want users, to build out profile. User profile. So as you can see, that's the epic, and this is literally how you do it. So you add as many user stories as are relevant to this epic, and then I'll move on and create the next epic. As we said earlier, the next epic is, it's here. We can say, let's put this, search for flights. Search for flights. Allow or help users to be able to search for flights on flight scanner. And proceed to it. That's the epic. Jira does something really nice. It gives them colors, so you can see, and I can edit that if I wanted to. So every epic has a color. If you recall, the color in this epic is purple. That's not something for you to worry about, but it's a nice visual representation. And then here again, we add a child issue. And then once we do that, we have to specify. We're adding stories. So we select the story and then help users to be able to search for flights on Flight Scanner. And we said, users can provide the destination where they headed to, which is destination let's provide the end destination, because there are two destinations. You also need to provide the travel from destination. So that's the origin. Provide the origin destination. The origin destination is where you're flying from, and then where you're headed to. So I can add as many requirements, as many user stories as possible for this epic. I just wanted to show that to illustrate the relationships. So what has been illustrated there then? I think someone has mistakenly deleted our board. Is that the case? No. Okay. It's not. Right. So what has been illustrated there is an epic which has multiple user stories, and a user story which will have, you can have multiple tasks. I think that's the last one to show you. So I can select, provide the end origin, and then create the subtask. As shown, a user story would have multiple tasks. The tasks are all the things. So what are all the things that would have to be done in order for us to say this piece of work is done, is complete, it's been implemented? If everything below that has to be done has been completed, then we can say this work here is done. And by done, it means that customers can now use this feature. We can release this. We can launch it to the world. And so one of the things will be always, so engineers, your software engineers, they always do what's known as they build the logic. What is the logic for this? They will build this. They will code this. So we can call that build business logic. This will be assigned to engineers. And then your designers would create the UI. That's a user interface. And we know that there are two types of designers. There are user interface designs, and then there are user experience designers. So create user interface, and then the other designers will create the user experience designs. So you can always edit as well, create user interface designs. So I'll add as many tasks as necessary in here. And as a product manager, a question would be, as a PM, do I have to add these? No, I don't. I'm just doing this to illustrate, what goes on, so you have an idea. As a PM, all I do is essentially create epics and say, I've done the brainstorming with the business. We've identified what we want to build. So these are the things that we've identified from our phase 1 brainstorming. Or it could be, these are the things that, using my subject matter expert, I believe we need to do. And that being the case, I will then create these, and then move to Jira and create the epics. If I want to do more, so I have the time, I can then create some user stories, and that would be it. Then the rest, it would be me sitting down with the team. That's with the engineering team, and the engineering team consists of these people, which is you have your engineers, that's your software engineers. You have your QA engineers. So these are the guys that test the code to make sure there are no bugs. And then, as we've said, we'll have your UI, user interface designers. You have your UX, user experience designers. User experience designers. And then nowadays, you have a new integration. And these guys, they come from a data perspective. Now you hear data. Everything is data driven. And as such, you don't have what's known as your customer experience analysts. And these guys, essentially, they run experiments. We want to experiment to find out like which of the features are done really well with customers and what solves customer problems, the most. What features are really good, so we should make them prominent. And we focus on really optimizing them well. Because if our features are optimized really well, then customers will keep coming to our website. Nowadays, this is tech. As soon as you do something really well, there will be a competitor. As I shared earlier, Skyscanner and Cheap Flights, they do the same thing. They do exactly the same thing. And there's so many more out there. So whenever we launch Flight Scanner, there will be a different competitor coming to the market. It may be, 1-2 months max, someone else comes to the market. So we need to build our competitive advantage really well so that we become the go-to in the market. And so these are the key. Whenever I say engineering team, this is what it's meant by that. And engineering team can expand. So in most cases, you will have more and more people from within the business, coming in to find out. But this is a core engineering team. These people run your product and software development. And as a PM, you may ask, there's one more. You have a product owner. In most cases, you have the PM also being the product owner. In most cases, in some businesses, as a PM, I sit outside, product manager. Everything that goes on here, I am aware. Whenever they develop the feature, they come present it to me. Am I happy with it? Does it meet the vision that I have for the product? If it does, fantastic. I then take it and share with the rest of the business, demo it, and then at that point get back to the team, the product owner, and they will release this to the rest of the world to use. And so you can see that I'm not with the team. I'm actually outside looking in. So I'm outside looking in, and that's the product team. And so I was sharing that just to illustrate the idea of the demarcation of responsibilities. So as a PM, then I'm helping the team. If you can see, this is a team, they're responsible for doing all of the work, and I miss someone else. That's the business analyst. How can I? The business analyst, this person also works with the team. Send to back. This person works with the team, and the demarcation responsibility then lies in me being able to create create epics, and when necessary, I feel like maybe the BA, the business analyst, and the product owner, they're really busy. I said, fine, don't worry, I'll help you out. I'll create the user stories in Jira, and I'll come in here and create them as you saw. And then I have to take the team through the requirements. So the team comes in and I say, guys, this is a high level of all of the features. Take them through, explain each and every one of them. This is a meeting that can go on for an hour, 2 hours sometimes. And everyone understands. They post lots of questions. I try to answer as best as I can, and then also come over to Jira and show them where the work sits. I can do this. Just click on backlog. By clicking on backlog, you can see this is what it looks like. So this is just the beginning. There's gonna be many more population of these tickets, but as you can see that it's starting to shape up, where say by the time I finish adding everything else, we'll end up with a massive backlog here. So you can see what the team would be using, and by the team I mean these guys. This is what they would then use to proceed to build, and they can't build yet because as a PM I haven't prioritized which will be done for MVP and which won't be done for MVP. So to John's point earlier, how do we do that? So we can use the range of frameworks to use, as I shared earlier. There is the RISE framework and there is the Moscow. There are many more frameworks out there, but these are the most used frameworks when it comes to prioritization. RISE and Moscow. So, and I then said that we'll have M just means must, and the S stands for should, and the should just means this is something we should be doing. We could be doing. So these are all strategic decisions, and we won't be doing. So everything cannot be important. If everything is important, nothing is important. So this level of prioritization helps us to think from, the key things that we should focus on to allow us to get to market as quick as possible. And RISE, so this is Moscow, and RISE stands for reach. To do RISE is much more sophisticated. It's very scientific, and if you're in a company, if you're in consulting, RISE is what would make you get that promotion. If you think in this manner, reach, impact, confidence, and effort. So reach is, if we deliver search, for example, search for flights, how many people would that impact? That would impact everyone. So that would have a high reach, and a high reach is given from 0 to 100. So if something has a high reach, you would then give it a very high score. That's one approach. Or you can do it with percentages. You can say a high reach is 100%, a medium reach is 50%, a low reach is 20%. And so these are all arbitrary, so you define them so it makes sense to anyone using. There isn't any definition that is universally used. You need to define a range and be able to explain it to people. So if you said 100%, then you have to be consistent across your judgment. And we will use the RISE framework on this. We'll do the two, so how you will have an experience of how to use either of. So we'll begin with Moscow. As I said, this is much more, it's not the same, it's not the same, as data driven as this. This is more feel, like we feel we must do. So we must do search for flights, for example. So you have must, should, could, and won't. Your musts are things that you must do immediately, and your should, you could say we'll put these, on the back burner. We'll leave them in the roadmap, and we'll do them later. Maybe after we've launched MVP. And then your could is right now there isn't a business need for it. There is no justification for it, and so we won't do it right now. And won't is I don't see us doing it. It makes no sense. It's a waste of money. We don't have money to waste, so we'll leave it aside. So you're ruthlessly prioritizing, and you must be able to defend this to anyone. Your manager may say, "Tell me how you came to this justification," and you should be able to explain. Whereas the RISE framework here is very scientific, and it just in the end you'll be able to give the same justification and impact, but it will be data driven. So having put all of the numbers in the end, it gives you a score for each of these, and that is not driven by I feel this is my gut instinct. That's driven by data. Well, the data shows that we should do this first. It shows that we should do this and this and this, and then these we should leave them for now. That's the impact of using RISE. Okay, let's do one first. So let's do Moscow. That's much more straightforward. But before that, any questions? Are we all understanding RISE and Moscow?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
In your experience, which method is mostly used, RISE or Moscow? Or is that the PM to decide?
Yeah, you find that Moscow is most used, and RISE is something that as consultancies are spreading across the world, and RISE is on the rise as well, where most people are relying on data. If I went to a presentation to say, I've come up with this amazing idea of an aggregator, and for MVP, we're going to deliver the first 3 items, they say, why? What's your justification? What's your rationale for using them? And if I say, well, just gut feel, then they won't be as impressed as if I said, well, I've got a four critical things that I've compared across. That's the reach. How many people would it impact? How many people will use it, and what is the impact on users? And how confident are we that this feature might make the our proposed assessment of it? And then how much effort would it take from our development team? So having put it across that matrix, it turned out that these 3 items are the most critically beneficial for the product and our business. That's far more impressive and persuasive than just saying, well, according to my gut feel, we should do these. So data driven is making RISE to be commonly used, well, more used as product evolves. But Moscow, it's like bread and butter for many teams. This is what they use. So it's also good to know it, because in your evolution as a PM, you need to sometimes use this to quickly get the team moving. So you don't need to rely on RISE. This takes time to build, as you will see. So, any other questions? Okay, is everyone okay? Should we take a small break, or are you all good to go?
I think we're good to go.
I'm good to go.
Awesome. I realized that in our past 3 sessions, we haven't taken a break. So, hopefully, we're all good. Okay, let's use Moscow. So, how does Moscow work? Remember, we're using Moscow to prioritize. We want to decide what items we should focus on for MVP and what items we should leave behind. That's the key exercise here. So we can copy that across here and remove these. Okay, so we'll change the colors. We'll have, let's use something that would help us. Must, should, could, and won't. And so for the won't, we'll leave them in yellow. For MVP, let's keep it green. Make it green and red for should, or pink, purple for could. Okay, so first one, let's think of should. Sorry, let's think of must. So we just need to change the color to green, just to say we want that to be our MVP, and make that clear. That's MVP item. So then, are we saying search for flights? And how we need to ration these things is searching for a flight. That's critical. That's not something we want to leave, for, let's say we'll do it next. We don't want that. We want to be able to do it immediately. That's the core of the product.
Yeah, the core.
Sorry?
I said the search for flights is the core.
Exactly. It's the core of the product. And, imagine going on Amazon and not being able to, to search. That's a big part of the product. And if you're looking at, even as a small business, you think, like, what am I really solving for? What is the problem I'm resolving? In our case, that's even evident in our name, flight scanner. So we're searching for flights. So search for flights will be something we want as part of our MVP. We want to release it yesterday. Do we care about filters? Filter with class? Filter flight class with prices. Do we want to, this actually would be part of this, so we can reduce it. So we'll make this decision when we get here. And then sort flight results. Is that something we care about for MVP as a day one release? We have...
Yeah, since we are trying to search, we should be able to sort.
Right. But think about it. You want to be able to search, right? I'm here. London to Spain, these are the dates. Like, which are the fundamental features that I need?
Yeah.
Like, some of these I just want to be able to search. Search, and that's it, right? Sorting and all of...
But when the results come, people have to be able to sort, like there should be like a form of way that they can be able to select after searching.
Because if your competitors have that capability, you don't want to not have it.
But we're trying to, to get to market. Let's say we have you're on this startup and they've just acquired finance and they want to release something within the next, let's say, 6 months. So this is a 6 months project, and in engineering teams, it takes a while to implement things. The logic, building, all of that, designs, and as we saw, we need all of these people to be really putting in long hours. And so time, the usual time, cost, scope, all of these things are things to bear in mind. So we need to bear in mind, the project time. We need to bear in mind the scope, like how much can we do in 6 months, for example. And we need to bear in mind, budget, like how much money do we have to play with. Yeah. So we worry about these, key things. These are the key ones: time, scope, and budget. We don't have unlimited budget, and we want to be able to release something in 6 months. What might we do? So anything that might lead to us going over 6 months, we push it. Anything that, might impact our scope and make us have more to deliver, in which case would lead to us pushing the time, will lead to us maybe having to spend more money. So is that really, having said that, 6 months? Do we have time to be doing sort? Is that a key thing? Maybe. So we're saying it is. Okay. And then this is filter again. So that's here. So we group, filter related requests. Destination from, this is part of search. So we can put it here. That's something we'll be doing. That's fine. That's just the finer detail. Registration. Do we value registration? So how we should evaluate this, not just evaluate them independently. So look across the board and think, what is registration greater, of more value than everything else that's on this board? If it is, then we might, remember guys, we have 6 months.
Yeah, we might say for the registration, we might want to keep the registration out of it, like, because the other competitor, you can actually search without registering, without signing in at first. So you can get new customers to come in and then easily search. And then by the time they are going to the stage of sorting or, booking or whatever, then they can now you can now make it that they have to like sign up before they can, do that. But then they've already gotten the information from you.
I would say it shouldn't be about the MVP because there could be legal ramifications, especially when it comes to keeping personal information of customers, which might make it longer.
Okay. So registration, yeah, we think of GDPR and all of the legal frameworks that might impact us. So we're a startup, we may not have the resources to think about managing those, sort of expectations from a legal perspective. So that being said, then we're not putting as part of our MVP. So we leave it there. We don't know where it will sit here in terms of Moscow. Yeah, we're just saying MVP. That's all we care about for now. And then, what about filter? Is that MVP for us? Given, 6 months, so that sort of predetermines that our scope shouldn't be too much. And it also means our budget is not, we're a young company, young startup. So our budget is not really, flexible. It's not too big. It's not too flexible. It's very rigid. What are your thoughts?
What about if you put only certain amounts of filter, not like the cumbersome amounts that's currently on Skyscanner?
Brilliant.
So like just 1 or 2.
Yeah, brilliant. Exactly. We can do exactly that. So in most cases, we can say, actually, we want to just give a taster of the future. So we'll do some ideas within filtering. So if we use Skyscanner as the example, you can filter, once you search, you can filter by departure times, you can filter by airlines, you can filter by journey durations, if you want a cheap flight, sometimes you can specify, you're willing to travel for, if the direct flight is like, for example, 2 hours, and you're willing to fly for 15 hours. That will, of course, make your ticket a lot cheaper. So from a filtering perspective, then we can say maybe for MVP, we focus on like stops, the number of stops. We focus on departure times and the journey duration. We have enough time, scope, and budget to focus on those. And then things like airlines, airports, and flight or mission, and many, many more other filter ideas. We can do those post MVP. So, brilliant idea. We do some aspects of filter. And then can put a tag, say some filtering, some MVP filtering. Okay, that's just, to note that it's not all, just some. Great. What else stands out? Save my flight searches. Is that MVP? Idea. Contact us.
Yeah, contact us is very important. Even from the beginning, it should be like, because when people search, there's some people that will not be able to like go through the search themselves. They might need some kind of support. Either contact us is only so like contact us or support all together. I don't know, but there should be like a kind of support, I think.
All right. Do you all agree?
Yes.
Makes sense. Green.
I would say also providing flight ideas, because I for one, sometimes go on Skyscanner looking for ideas just somewhere I can fly that could potentially bring in more people to pay for flights that they might not normally pay for.
Yeah, that's true, because you're selling a product, even though it's you're passing like an idea for services, but you cannot sell a product if you don't flash it in front of them. Even though you're trying to make people search for flights themselves, then you can't just make them search and not give them idea of like what to search. Some people don't really have that idea. They want to see what you are pushing at them first. They're only coming to search because they are looking for something. That's why it's called a search. So when they are coming, they don't even know where to start with the search. But when there is an idea in front of them, they will definitely, it will register. And then even if they are not looking at that idea, they will come back to it.
Okay, and that's something we can use as part of our premier product. That's MVP. So is there anything else that stands out that you say, without this, our product might not be successful? Of the remainder. Again, because we're using Moscow, we're judgment driven. Judgment is like business value. We're product owners. So we're product managers. We think business value. Business value, business value, business value. So everything we do is about we need to be able to justify the business value. So product managers.
I would say notifying customers of price changes, sorry. You give them notifications of, well, that means you have to get the registration. Actually, I don't know.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to do that without the registration now, right? Or having some form of their data. Yeah, so that might come later on when you already have their data. They have to give you consent for you to send them notifications and send them prompts and all that.
Okay, fantastic.
Collecting customer feedback would be one, especially as a new business.
I'll think that save my flight searches would be part of the MVP because in order to drive sales, that should be part of MVP too.
All right. So we the premier product again using
Because it's
in
so nuts anyway.
mm, so in using this as example. So by the way, this is good. This is good practice to have this visual because this is part of what. Remember, I said the product team. The role of your UI and UX designers is to give you visuals to help you think. So they will use Figma to provide those visuals. In the absence of visuals, where almost Skyscanner is acting as our UI and UX designers. It's helping us to visualize, to think. So it's good. It's good practice that you can identify with this and use it to help in our rationalization here. So that being said, in here then you have save my flight searches. Reason I bring up this visual is to illustrate. You search, you're here from where is your origin, where you headed to, and your departure and your return. And when you can, most people customize this. The likelihood of you worrying about like first class tickets if you come to a Skyscanner is zero. You don't come here to buy first class tickets. You go directly. So this is for people hoping to save money. And then so you come here and you search for, you know, maybe two adult tickets, and that's it. And you search. That's your fundamental product. Everything else after this is more to aid a better customer experience. So, do you want to save that search? Is that something you care about as MVP? What additional value does it add to users as part of your MVP? So I'm pushing it back to you. Tell me why we should add it. What's the value that you're perceiving? Help me see it. It's a tough one, right? This is your
Okay,
as
I was saying,
But similarly to notifying customers of price changes, if you want to save a flight, you have to sign on too. So then, if we're not putting registration as the MVP, then we probably couldn't put
Exactly.
save
So
flights.
that's
okay, anyway, I was just driving at, increasing sales. That's why I had to put that up.
so
But it
that's
could be secondary anyway. It could be secondary.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think what it's hinged on the fact that it's like a 6-month project at first, like the first phase of the project, and then you're also looking at your um, startup capabilities. If it's something that if it's something that you need to add along the line, which you should add along the line, then it can be added. But at the beginning, we are trying to look at the core. What are the core factors, like the core things that we have to put, structures we have to put now? So I wouldn't really say that saving the flight would be a core in comparison to what we have been talking about. Like when we weigh it to the others, it is important, but not as important as the others.
Like I said, it could be secondary.
okay. Okay. All great points, guys. And yeah, so we'll leave that as a secondary item. And the primary then are like these are the core things. And reason why this is really good is a good example for a secondary. That means post MVP. So we finish in 6 months and we launch and then we say, how do we drive our sales? How do we make more money? Then we say, well, how about doing a feature that allows customers to save their searches? And once those searches are saved, we're collecting data. We're gathering data and then we can notify them. Did you know that something in your safe, a flight on your safe journey, on your safe searches, now have the prices have gone down, then you're driving more people. So you can see that there's a relationship with those features,
Yeah.
which makes them solid candidates for post MVP. And so then, these being our MVPs, you've seen exactly. I love the conversations there, guys. This is exactly what happens in the room, and there will be a lot more aggressive as a PM. And as a PM, your role is just to enable the conversations. Just ask questions and let people give you their thoughts and ideas, and that's how you reach the point where you can say yes, we agree on these, and that's your first experience of what happens in these sorts of meetings where ideas are being prioritized, features are being agreed upon, and then now as a PM, you can take these and add them to Jira as we illustrated earlier. And once that's done, you know that this is your MVP. So what would have to happen next is to expand upon these ideas. And the expansion is just the user story. So we take, for example, flight search and we break it down. And this is where I said we're cheating, not cheating, but like this Skyscanner is like our UX and UI design. And what I mean by that, you will see shortly. So we take search for flights and we expand, we go deeper. What do I need to do in order to search? Designers would design something like this and say, in order for a customer to search, we need that customer to provide their origin, which is from, where they're headed to, and what's the departure date, and when is a return, if any. And then specify, additional information like how many adults are you searching for? Are you traveling with children? And if if I was flying to, I think, again, because it's a new company, we can make our own business rule, decision, and say, if you're flying within Africa, we don't care if, we'll only show you economy tickets. We're not going to show you like first class, business class. We don't care. As an MVP, that would be our decision for MVP. Post MVP, sure, we can make deals and somehow find a way to give people discounts and offerings for your first class and business class tickets. So for MVP, only focus on economy, and we allow people to specify how many adults they would like to travel with and how many children they would love to travel with. So when you say expand, that's exactly what I mean. So we take this and we capture all of these details. Move this here. So are we clear on what I mean by expand? So take the flight, epic, and expand just means, being able to say the intricate details that are required to fulfill search for flights. In which case, it's going to be not that. The first thing is provide your from. That's the first thing you need, which is from. That's your origin. Travel origin, and then the next is travel destination. You may have a question and say, well, in my idea that I have to use as a project, what if I don't have a UI, a user interface that would help me to sort of visualize and do what you're doing? Great question. And that's why these are all the things you have to keep in mind. And in which case, it doesn't mean your idea won't be feasible. It just means you would have to be much more creative. So you want to have something that, gives you, like, spurs your ideas. You will need to be more creative, and you will need to figure out when it comes to like unpacking an epic, if your epic is, whatever it may be, you will need to think of what details might be needed to fulfill that epic. So, which is good. It helps you think so much more, and so you gain appreciation for, product management in general. Okay, and then we also need to find out your departure date and your return date. So, departure date and your return date. And then based on what Skyscanner, being our UI and UX designers, this is what they've told us. We also need to find out how many travelers and how many children, how many adult travelers and how many children. So you can specify the number of adults traveling, specify the number of children traveling. And this is what we need to do in order to unpack this epic. Make it gold, to say it's amber, it's almost there. And that's one done. This is something that as a PM I will do alone. I can do this alone. And given that the designers, the UI designers and the user experience designers have sent me a wireframe. So in our case, it will be, this is what it might look like. I may get like, maybe something like this, in which case it's a wireframe. I'll be using this to guide my thinking. Okay, this is what the designers have come up with, and now I'm capturing the requirements, sort of the business requirements. And so this is the epic, and each one of this card will represent a user story, or it could be multiple user stories within it. But again, with experience, you know how many. But looking here, this is dealing with one thing, which is flight from London to Spain in this regard. But as we said, we are focusing on the African market, which is flight from Nigeria to maybe, let's say, Ghana, or flights within Nigeria itself, or flights within Ghana. So that's our market. As illustrated here, this is our market, just the African continent. Okay. And what is the next step? We've outlined the epic, we've outlined some of the stories, which is just at use case level. So these are known as use cases. And as we said earlier, these are all use cases. A use case is it's an objective that the user wants to achieve. In which case, here the user wants to enter the origin. As we can see here, user wants to enter the origin. Why? So that they can get a result of where they're headed to. They can get the outcome, which is to get search results. I want to provide an origin. I want to provide where I'm headed to. I want to provide a departure date. I want to provide a return date if I need a return flight. I may just need a single flight, so a single journey from Nigeria to Ghana, and that's all I need for now because I'm there indefinitely. And then I specify the number of adults or children if I have any that will be traveling with me, and that's it. And what does this look like? So if we come here, so this is a framework that would help us all. Let me hide these. We don't need these now. That's down the line. And also hide these. Okay, so you can see that's the epic, and these are the sub user stories. And as a PM, in true fashion, you're all about communicating clearly. So you start gathering these so you can share with the team. And how to communicate with the team, it's by using maybe something like this in Excel. That's one way. You can leave it in this form if you wish. If you have the time, you can put it in something a little bit neat. All of these frameworks I will share with you. I'll start creating them in a Google Dropbox, so you have access to them, and you can download and keep them for your future use when you're in your PM role. These are things that this is how you could be communicating. It's very clear. If you share this with anyone, they know exactly what to do. So you have the epic, you have the use case, and you have the user story. And as we said, specify the origin, which is a from location. That's the use case there. Specify the end destination. Add a departure date. Add a return date. Specify the cabin class. Add the number of travelers. And search for the result. As we said earlier, the people that built the business logic are the engineers. So in which case, in order for you, so when you enter all of the information and you click on search, and search there is what this represents. Search for results. Something has to be done in order for you to get, the outcomes. And then the format then of this, so user story, as I said, you create them within an epic. So again, just to, I want us to really understand this. So I'll reiterate. We have the epic, search for results, which is part of our MVP. And now we're at the phase where we're trying to unpack and ensure that everyone really, would understand what we're trying to do for our MVP. So unpacking is where we're going into the detail. We leave the high level. The high level is our helicopter view. And then as we start going down, we start going to the nitty-gritty, the details. And this is what the details, involves. In our case, we have our amazing designers that have given us a user interface to show us what our proposed flight scanner would look like, so we can see. And this helps us to unpack. You may ask the question, in your role as a PM, will there be a UI and UX designer? And says yes, they will be there. So you will work with them to understand the user interface, and they will help you to understand the intricate details that will need to be delivered under searching for a flight. And a lot of the ideas will come from you. You may have already thought that, yes, since we're searching for flights, we need to have where they're flying from. We need to have where they're going. We need to have the departure date. We need to have a return date. So the UI and the UX designers are not really coming up with anything, outrageous that we didn't know. We would have figured that out. In which case, we've turned them in. These are now in this form. This form is known as, your use cases. So use cases is just shown like, what does the user want to do? What is it that customers are trying to do with travel origin? With the travel origin, they're trying to specify where they're traveling from. And so that's really clear. We capture the use cases and we build that understanding of why each use case is needed. So I said that this is trying to build the understanding of where they're traveling from. Customers are trying to know where they're traveling from. That's why they search that, because they might be able to change that across different locations. So we justify that internally to ourselves for all of the use cases, so we're clear. And then we move on to the user stories. and we'll dig into this much more next week. But bear with me. For user stories, there's a format and there's a framework. The framework is usually as a user, I want to so that, yeah, so as a user, put it this way. Right, as a user. So here, who's the user? User could be as a customer, as a product owner, so whoever is performing the activity. So in our case, it's all about users. It can just be customer. Let's put it customer. That's what most people understand. So as a customer, I want to be able to search for a flight. That's a high level user story. I want to, so what is the job that they're trying to do? That's, the task or action. And here, who is the user? Like, who's the person performing the activity? And then here is the benefit. That's the framework. With this, don't worry, we'll write so many user stories, so you will know this. I don't care if someone wakes you up at 6 a.m. in the morning, you will know exactly how to write any user story, because we're going to do so many of them. So you have that much practice to write several. It's a very simple framework. It works the same if you work in healthcare, if you work in tech, if you work in fintech, if you're working in, retail, travel, doesn't matter. As long as you're building tech products, it's the same framework that everyone uses. So everyone understands. And that being said, everyone in tech understands. So we look at example here, using a use case of specify the from location, which is the origin, where I'm traveling from. So we say, can you all see, is this too small? Can you all see this screen? Is it readable?
Yeah, I can zoom in so I can see
Okay.
it.
So maybe let me try and zoom for everyone else. Okay, so you have specified the from location, that's the use case, and then the user story for that would be, as a user, I want to be able to specify where I will be traveling from so that I can enter a location. Yeah. So, as we said, you're here, that's a from. You want to be able to provide that so you can obtain your search outcomes. And then go on to the next one, the end destination. So, but first of all, you can see the framework as a user. It could be customer, user and customer. In tech, they use interchangeably. So whether you say customer or user, don't worry, it's the same thing. And what is the job that this user is trying to perform? They want to be able to enter a origin destination. And then in the next one, it's the same. And in the third one, which is the departure date, as a user, I want to be able to specify the departure date so that I can access flights for the chosen date. So again, we see that there is the user, we see the action that they're trying to perform, which is to enter a departure date. And what's the benefit for them? Why do they want to enter a departure date? They're trying to enter that date, departure date, because they want results for that date. It's the reason why you have this, from a business perspective, is the idea that if every feature you build has a relevance for customers, then it focuses everyone on delivering value to the business. That's why you have that last piece, which is so that. Whenever you say so that in a user story, it just means the benefit to the user or to the customer. or to the person doing that activity. And that's something to bear in mind. Any questions on anything so far? Okay. So this is user stories as we saw. So it's a matter of then you're looking, just to round up. Today we've seen how to create epics, and we've seen how to create user stories within epics. And we've also seen, how to write the user stories themselves. And we've seen how to brainstorm a bunch of requirements and then map them into MVP. And then we've seen how to, delve into them to unpack some of the information that will be required to achieve the requirement, to say this requirement is fully done. We need to do all of these. We need to deliver all of these user stories. And so that brings us to the end of our class today. That's all we have time for today. Next time, we will look at, making sure that we understand. We'll go back a little bit to the genesis. How do we write user stories? I want everyone to really master, and there will be in-class activities of you writing user stories. And then we'll also look at acceptance criteria as part of that version of what I said. It's 20% of things you need to master. So we'll also learn how to write acceptance criteria, and we'll then move into conducting quantitative and qualitative interviews. That's very important to help us understand pain points. So today is giving us, a high-level overview of pain points. The features that we created today are all resolving customer pain points. So now we work backwards to understand where those requirements came from, and we get them from our interviews. And so for next time, I will share links. I'll get everyone's email address, and so I can send access to Slack, Jira, Figma, all of these platforms, all of these tools. You will all be experts. They're not difficult to use, and I hope to help you all master them. Any questions? Okay. Lastly, for the quiz that we did, I will share, results for that, so all of you can, see how you did, how you performed. Thank you for the participation. So far, it's been, everyone did really well. It just shows that we're really engaging with the content, and there will be, another quiz coming up at the end of next week, after class next week, to test the concepts that we've covered today and the ones we'll cover next week. And again, as I said, all of these will be aggregated to just help you to understand how well you're engaging with the content.